I don't think there's a single issue that's more important to the prosperity of the world and the profitability of business around the world and in the United States than what the American people are going to finally decide on free trade versus protectionism. America remains the economic engine of the world. Certainly our market remains the endpoint for the productivity of much of the world. And if America were to turn protectionist, it would be a historic shift in the way the world does its business and runs its economy, possibly to the detriment of developing countries who benefit tremendously from being able to sell in to the American market. And what we're seeing and have been seeing for the last 20 years is a slow movement of the American public from being completely in favor of free trade, starting after World War II through the 1970s, when it wasn't even an issue. We didn't even have what was called fast track until, I think, Jerry Ford's presidency. Didn't need it. That is, no one was going to fight a trade bill. The president went and negotiated a trade bill, and Congress signed it and voted for it. That was it. And then slowly over the last 20 years, the public has been getting more doubtful about whether free trade benefits American people. And the Democratic Party, as you know, has been quicker to deal with those concerns. Bill Clinton was still a big free trader. We had this extraordinary event in the first week of December when Hillary Clinton announced that she was going to hold a timeout on the Doha trade rounds. This is her first real break with her husband on a major issue for the presidential campaign. And the Financial Times...
Yeah, but he'll probably say he was against free trade from the beginning.
Well, that's old
like
Bill.
He did with Iraq.
No, that's old Bill for you. But the Financial Times ran that as the banner story, front page, above the fold, big color photograph of Hillary, because I think it's that big an issue. That if Hillary and the Democratic Party is going to begin to oppose world trade negotiations, either out of wisdom, I think there's a policy debate to be had.
Right.
It's not, but the politics of it is shifting. I was just recently looking at the history of Republican Party and polling on this, and the Republican Party has moved from being sort of 5-3 in favor of free trade just 10 years ago to being 60-30 against free trade as of October in the Wall Street Journal.
There's a good reason for this, and you know it, and you sort of alluded to it when you said the public had these concerns. I'm pretty much a free trade guy too, and I'm a Democrat, but I understand the anxiety and the anger and the almost social anomie, severe alienation that people feel. They feel that the whole game is run by big governments and big corporations, and suddenly their husband or their brother or their kids are out of jobs, and that's what's driving this thing. People are seeing on the ground. My father-in-law is a conservative Republican, retired furniture guy in furniture country in North Carolina. The town he lives in is a ghost town. I mean, these people are not for free trade anymure.
I mean, part of it is an illusion. That is, you see the textile factory or the shoe factory closed down.
That's not an illusion if you work there.
No. Let me just finish my thought. And you don't see the new jobs that are created that are just in these anonymous business buildings. On the other hand, I was going to say it's not just an illusion. We've got the Chinese and the Indian workforce being integrated into the world labor market. And it's, to me, worth studying very closely whether that's going to result in substantial downward pressure on American wage rates, which is at the heart of American prosperity. So I don't think the American public is simply suffering from anxiety. I think there's at least an arguable basis for that anxiety, and that the political parties are going to have to engage and try to figure out. I believe that, and I think this is a huge worldwide issue as America comes to grips with it. And interestingly, the only Republican candidate for president who's toying with sort of a Democratic view is Huckabee.
It's Huckabee, right.
With his instincts.
Goes back to your thing about populism.
Yes. And how the American public resolves that debate is going to be central, I believe, to so much that our friends in Europe and Asia and Latin America...
Let's flash forward, though. Let's say that there's a good chance. I'd like to say likely, but I don't want to jinx it. So let's say there's a good chance there'll be a Democrat in the White House, right? Haven't we had little clues already that Democrats will be much more pro-trade than one might think from looking at the Democratic resume? I mean, hasn't Nancy Pelosi sort of telegraphed with what she's tried to do on Peru? Charlie Rangel, the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, hasn't he sort of telegraphed certain other members that are unlikely suspects here, who now are seemed prepared. They just don't want to give George Bush. They don't trust George Bush and the people around him to negotiate anything on their behalf.
But
nor should they, by the way.
Maybe that's true. Although I remember that when Bill Clinton was trying to get the Democrats in Congress to pass NAFTA, with Newt Gingrich was leading the Republican support for it, he had to browbeat the Democrats to get half of the caucus to vote for it, because even then they sensed that politically it wasn't a wise move.
But you said the key thing. Gingrich was the Republican leader. The Clinton was, as we know, one of the greatest politicians of all time, and still is. He managed to get that deal through, barely, right? Barely,
absolutely.
With a Republican majority. He's not going to, the next president's not going to have that.